You get out of here right now. People like you don't belong in a place like this, and if you don't leave, I'll have security drag you out in handcuffs." The words exploded from Nathan Reed, the terminal manager at San Verde Private Airport, cutting through the humid July air like a blade laced with venom. His voice, dripping with contempt, echoed across the sleek marble floors of the VIP lounge, drawing the stunned gazes of nearby staff and passengers. Rain pounded against the glass walls of the terminal, amplifying the tension as Amara Ellis, a 39-year-old black woman, stood frozen, her designer coat clinging to her frame. She was no ordinary traveler. She was the CEO of Horizon Elite, the very company that owned this exclusive airport terminal. Yet, in this moment, she was just a woman facing the raw sting of prejudice from an employee who had no idea of the storm he had just unleashed. Before we dive into this gripping story, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and give this story a like to support our channel as we uncover tales of justice and transformation. It was a rainy July afternoon at San Verde Private Airport in California, the kind of downpour that turned the tarmac into a shimmering mirror of gray clouds. Amara Ellis stepped out of her chauffeured black SUV, her presence commanding yet understated. At 39, she was a titan in the world of private aviation, having steered Horizon Elite, a family empire built over 3 generations, into a $12 billion juggernaut that dominated luxury travel across North America. Her family's legacy spanned not just aviation, but real estate, renewable energy, and philanthropy. Yet Amara preferred the shadows to the spotlight. No Instagram, no Forbes covers, no flashy interviews. Her power was in her actions, not her public persona. Today, she was rushing back from a grueling 48-hour trip to Tokyo, where she'd finalized a $5.5 billion acquisition of a rival charter company, her destination Los Angeles, for Horizon Elite's 25th anniversary gala, a celebration of her family's vision and her own relentless drive. Amara's attire was a masterclass in quiet luxury, a tailored navy silk coat, custom-made Louboutin heels, and a sleek leather valise that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her hair, pulled into an elegant low bun, glistened under the rain as she approached the terminal. She'd chosen to arrive early, intending to relax in the VIP lounge, a sanctuary she'd personally approved the design for, with its plush leather seating, crystal chandeliers, and panoramic views of the runway. This lounge, with its $75,000 annual membership fee, was reserved for the elite tech moguls, heads of state, and A-list celebrities. Amara had used it countless times, often slipping in during off hours to avoid attention. But today, the lounge was bustling, and as she approached the entrance, Nathan Reed, the terminal manager, stepped into her path with a scowl. Nathan, a wiry man in his mid-40s with a clipped tone and an air of self-assured authority, barely glanced at Amara before barking his demand for her credentials. "This area is for VIPs only. Show me your membership card and boarding pass. Now!" His tone was sharp, laced with an undertone of skepticism that made Amara's jaw tighten. She reached into her valise, producing her platinum membership card and boarding pass, both embossed with the Horizon Elite logo. Nathan snatched them from her hand, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized them like a detective inspecting forged evidence. "These don't look right," he declared, loud enough for nearby staff to turn their heads. "You'll need to wait outside while we verify. This lounge is for our top-tier clients, people who pay for exclusivity." The implication was clear. Amara, in his eyes, didn't fit the profile. Amara's composure held, though a flicker of disbelief crossed her face. She'd been a member of this lounge for over a decade, had personally overseen its renovation, and yet here she was, being treated like an intruder. "I assure you, my credentials are valid," she said calmly, her voice steady but firm. Nathan smirked, undeterred. Do you even know what kind of place this is? Our clients are billionaires, CEOs, royalty. The membership fee alone is more than most people make in a year. Are you sure you're in the right place? His words were a deliberate jab, and the racial undertone was unmistakable, as if to underscore his point. A white man in his 60s, dressed casually in a polo shirt and khakis, strolled past. Nathan waved him through with a deferential nod. No questions asked, no credentials demanded. The contrast was stark, and Amara felt the weight of it like a punch to the gut. Forced to step outside under a narrow awning that offered little protection from the rain. Amara stood for 15 minutes, her coat soaking through as other passengers, none of whom faced scrutiny, came and went. The message was clear: her appearance, her skin color, disqualified her from belonging in this space, regardless of her status. Yet Amara didn't react with anger. Instead, a steely resolve settled in her eyes. She wasn't just a passenger. She was the owner of this entire operation, and she wanted to see how deep this culture of prejudice ran. Her phone remained in her hand, but she didn't make a call. Not yet. She wanted to give Nathan and his team enough rope to reveal their true colors. The rain intensified, drumming against the awning as Amara stood, a solitary figure in a storm of both weather and injustice. Inside the lounge, staff whispered, some uncomfortable with Nathan's behavior but too afraid to intervene. A young ground crew member, Sofia Alvarez, watched from a distance, her instincts telling her something was terribly wrong. She'd seen Amara's face before, in a company-wide video addressed to employees, though she couldn't quite place it. The tension in the air was palpable, and as Amara stood in the downpour, she was already formulating a plan, not just to address this moment, but to dismantle the systemic flaws it exposed. This wasn't about her pride. It was about the countless others who lacked her power to fight back. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one she was about to unleash. As the rain continued its relentless assault on the San Verde private airport, Amara Ellis stood beneath the inadequate awning, her navy silk coat now heavy with water, her resolve hardening with each passing minute. The sting of Nathan Reed's discriminatory words still lingered, but Amara's mind was already shifting from personal affront to strategic calculation. She wasn't just a passenger humiliated by a prejudiced terminal manager. She was the CEO of Horizon Elite, and this incident was a glaring symptom of a deeper malaise within her company, determined to expose the extent of this toxic culture. She moved toward the tarmac where her private jet, a sleek, $15 million Gulfstream G700, awaited, its polished exterior gleaming despite the storm. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement, each step a deliberate assertion of her right to be there. But as she approached the aircraft's boarding stairs, she was met by Claire Morgan, the senior flight attendant with 7 years at Horizon Elite, whose imperious demeanor suggested she considered herself the gatekeeper of this elite world. Claire's eyes narrowed as she spotted Amara, her posture stiffening with prejudgment. "Excuse me." "Ma'am," she called out, stepping forward to block the stairs, her tone sharp and dismissive. "This is a private aircraft. You're not authorized to be here. The commercial terminal is 2 miles down the road. Try there." The words were laced with an assumption so blatant it made the nearby ground crew pause. Amara, unfazed, reached into her valise and produced her boarding pass, the Horizon Elite logo embossed in gold. "I'm on this flight," she said evenly, holding out the document. Claire barely glanced at it before scoffing. "That could be fake. Do you have any idea what it costs to charter this jet $100,000 per flight? You don't look like someone who can afford that." The accusation hung in the air, heavy with racial undertones, as the rain intensified, soaking Amara's hair and coat further. Around them, the ground crew, led by Marcus Thompson, A seasoned operations supervisor exchanged uneasy glances. Sofia Alvarez, the young technician who had sensed something amiss in the lounge, watched in growing horror, her intuition screaming that this was no ordinary passenger. Captain Daniel Foster, preparing the cockpit, overheard the exchange through an open window but remained silent, his hands gripping the checklist as he wrestled with his own reluctance to get involved. Amara's voice remained calm, but an edge crept in as she responded. "You're certain I don't belong here based on what?" "Exactly," Claire smirked, her confidence unshaken. "Experience. I've been in this industry long enough to know who flies private and who doesn't. You're in the wrong place." The condescension was breathtaking, and it wasn't lost on Marcus, who stepped forward hesitantly, his conscience battling his fear of overstepping. "Claire, maybe we should double-check the manifest," he suggested, his voice low but firm. Claire shot him a withering look. "Stay out of this. Marcus, I know how to do my job." Her dismissal of Marcus only fueled Amara's resolve. She could have revealed her identity then, ending the charade with a single sentence, but she chose to let the situation unfold, knowing each word and action was evidence of a systemic failure. Instead, she asked, "What makes you so sure I'm not a passenger?" Claire's response was immediate and cutting. "Look, I'm not here to argue. People who fly on jets like this don't show up alone, carrying their own bags, looking like you." The implication was unmistakable, and it sent a chill through Sofia, who whispered to a colleague, "I think I've seen her before, in a company video." Her colleague shrugged, unwilling to challenge Claire's authority. At that moment, a white businessman in his 50s, dressed in a casual blazer, approached a nearby jet. Claire waved him through with a smile. No questions asked, no credentials demanded. The disparity was so blatant it made Marcus shift uncomfortably, his hands clenching into fists. Amara noticed it all. The sidelong glances, the unspoken discomfort, the silent complicity. She pulled out her phone, her fingers hovering over the screen. But she didn't dial yet. "Let's be clear," she said, her voice now carrying a quiet menace. "You're refusing me access to this aircraft because of how I look." Claire doubled down, her arrogance blinding her to the danger. "I'm protecting our client's privacy and security. If you don't leave, I'll call security to escort you out." The threat was a miscalculation of catastrophic proportions, and Amara's lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile, not one of amusement, but of a predator sizing up its prey. She stepped closer, her presence suddenly towering despite the rain-soaked coat. "Go ahead," she said softly. "Call security. I'd like to see how this plays out." Claire, mistaking Amara's calm for weakness, pulled out her radio and summoned security, her voice loud enough for the entire tarmac to hear. "We have an unauthorized person trying to board the G700. I need assistance immediately." Within minutes, David Palmer, the private terminal's security chief, jogged over, his face set in a scowl. Without asking for Amara's side, he sided with Claire. "Ma'am, you need to leave now. This is a restricted area." Amara's eyes locked onto his, unflinching. "I'm a passenger," she said, her voice now carrying an unmistakable authority. David laughed, a short, derisive sound. "A passenger. On this jet, lady. I've been in this business for 20 years. I know what our clients look like, and you're not it." The words were a death knell for his career, though he didn't know it yet. Sofia, unable to stay silent any longer, stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Sir, maybe we should check her credentials properly." "I think." Claire cut her off. "Sofia, I said stay out of it." But Sofia's words planted a seed of doubt in Marcus, who pulled out his tablet and began scrolling through the passenger manifest. His eyes widened as he saw the entry A. Ellis, owner, CEO. He opened his mouth to speak, but Amara raised a hand, silencing him. She wanted one more moment to let Claire and David dig their own graves. "You're making a serious mistake," she said, her voice now a low, controlled warning. "You have one chance to correct it." Claire, oblivious to the precipice she stood on, laughed mockingly. "The only mistake here is you thinking you can bluff your way onto this plane." At that moment, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the tarmac, and Ethan Caldwell, a tech billionaire and frequent Horizon Elite client, stepped out, recognizing Amara from a recent industry summit. He called out, "Amara Ellis, what's going on? Why are you standing in the rain?" The color drained from Claire's face, but her pride refused to yield. "She's claiming to be a passenger," Claire said, her voice faltering. Ethan's brow furrowed. "Claiming she owns this company." The words landed like a thunderclap, and for the first time, Claire and David exchanged a glance of pure panic. Amara, still holding her phone, finally pressed the call button. "Lena," she said, her voice now pure steel. "We have a situation at San Verde. Cancel everything and get the legal team here. Now." As the line connected, the tarmac fell silent. The rain, the only sound as Claire and David realized they had just crossed a line from which there was no return. Amara's gaze swept over them, her silence more damning than any words. This was no longer about a single incident. It was about dismantling a culture that had festered under her watch, and she was ready to wield her power to do it. The rain at San Verde Private Airport intensified, hammering the tarmac as Amara Ellis stood resolute. Her phone pressed to her ear, her voice a low, commanding hum as she spoke to her assistant, Lena Kim. The words of Ethan Caldwell, the tech billionaire who had inadvertently exposed her identity, still hung in the air, a bombshell that had silenced the once arrogant Claire Morgan and David Palmer. Their faces, now ashen with the dawning realization of their catastrophic error, betrayed a mix of fear and defiance. Claire, clinging to her crumbling authority, stammered, "There must be some mistake. The manifest only says A. Ellis. No first name, no title." Her voice wavered, but her refusal to back down only deepened the hole she was digging. Amara's eyes, sharp and unyielding, met Claire's as she ended her call with Lena. "No mistake," she said, her tone as cold as the rain soaking her coat. "You had my credentials in your hands and chose to ignore them. You decided who I was before I even spoke." The tarmac, slick with water, reflected the flashing lights of the approaching security vehicle, summoned by Claire's earlier call. David, the security chief, stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation. "Ma'am, let's take this inside and sort it out calmly," he said, his voice now laced with a nervous attempt at diplomacy. But Amara wasn't interested in his belated courtesy. "Inside," she repeated, her voice cutting through the storm. "You mean the lounge you barred me from, or the jet you refused to let me board?" "No. We'll resolve this right here." The ground crew, huddled under a nearby canopy, watched in tense silence, their unease palpable. Marcus Thompson, the operations supervisor, clutched his tablet, the screen still displaying Amara's name as owner CEO. He wanted to intervene, to stop the escalating disaster, but Claire's earlier rebuke kept him rooted, his conscience warring with his fear of repercussions. Sophia Alvarez, the young technician who had recognized Amara, whispered urgently to a colleague. "That's her, the CEO from the company address last quarter." "This is bad." Her colleague, a grizzled veteran named Javier Ruiz, nodded grimly but stayed silent, knowing the chain of command favored Claire and David. Meanwhile, Captain Daniel Foster, still in the cockpit, overheard the commotion through the open window, his hands trembling as he realized the gravity of his inaction. He'd flown for Horizon Elite for 18 years, priding himself on staying out of personnel issues. But now his silence felt like complicity. Amara, sensing the shifting dynamics, turned to Claire, You called security to remove me. They're here. What's your next move? Her question was a trap, and Claire, too stubborn to retreat, fell into it. I'm protecting this aircraft, she snapped, gesturing to the $15 million Gulfstream. You're not on the manifest I was given, and I don't care what some random passenger says. Ethan Caldwell, still standing nearby, shook his head in disbelief. Random passenger. She signs your paychecks. Lady. His words hit like a second thunderclap, and David's bravado faltered. He grabbed Claire's tablet, scrolling frantically, his eyes widening as he saw the same entry Marcus had found. A. Ellis, owner, CEO. He opened his mouth to speak, but Amara raised a hand, silencing him. Don't, she said, her voice now a low growl. You've both made it clear what you think of me. Now let's see what you do when faced with the truth. At that moment, the security vehicle screeched to a halt, and two uniformed officers stepped out, their faces stern but uncertain. David, desperate to regain control, pointed at Amara. This woman is causing a disturbance. She's not authorized to board. The officers hesitated, sensing the tension, and one of them, Officer Lena Carter, asked, Can we see your ID? Ma'am. Amara handed over her driver's license, Black American Express Centurion card, and Horizon Elite Executive badge, all pristine despite the rain. Officer Carter examined them, her brow furrowing as she recognized the name. This says Amara Ellis, CEO of Horizon Elite, she said, looking at David. Is there a reason you're questioning her? Claire, now visibly shaken, tried to deflect. The manifest only lists A. Ellis. It could be anyone. Officer Carter's eyes narrowed. It's her. I've seen her at company events. The revelation sent a ripple of panic through Claire and David, but Amara wasn't done. She dialed another number, this time to James Carter, Horizon Elite's head of security. James, I need all footage from the tarmac and lounge for the last 45 minutes. Secure it for legal review. And send a team to San Verde now. James, a former Secret Service agent, responded with military precision. Understood. Ms. Ellis, footage will be secured in 10 minutes. Team's on the way. As Amara hung up, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up, and Nia Ellis, her younger sister and Horizon Elite's HR director, stepped out, flanked by two attorneys and a corporate security officer. Nia's resemblance to Amara was striking. Same sharp cheekbones, same commanding presence. But her eyes burned with fury as she took in the scene. Her sister, drenched and disrespected, standing amidst a crowd of gawking employees. Amara. What the hell is going on? She demanded. Striding forward, Amara's response was measured but icy. Our employees have decided I don't belong on my own jet. They're about to learn what happens when you judge someone by their skin instead of their credentials. Nia's gaze swept over Claire and David, who now looked like cornered animals. You too, Nia said, her voice low and dangerous. Start explaining. Now. Claire, grasping at straws, stammered. We were just following protocol. The manifest wasn't clear, but Nia cut her off. Protocol. You humiliated the CEO of this company because you assumed she didn't belong. That's not protocol. That's prejudice. Marcus, unable to stay silent any longer, stepped forward. Ms. Ellis. I tried to suggest checking the manifest properly, but Claire whirled on him. Don't throw me under the bus. Marcus, you didn't say anything either. Her outburst only deepened the tension. And Sophia, emboldened by Nia's presence, spoke up. I recognized her, she said, her voice trembling but clear. I told them to check again, but they wouldn't listen. Amara's eyes softened briefly as she looked at Sophia, a flicker of gratitude breaking through her steely demeanor. Thank you, she said quietly. Your instincts will be remembered. Turning back to Claire and David, she continued. You had every opportunity to verify my identity. Instead, you chose to humiliate me in front of my own employees and clients. Why, David, sweating despite the cold rain, mumbled, We just thought you weren't, you know." Amara's voice was a whip. "Say it." "What did you think?" he faltered, unable to voice the truth that her race had disqualified her in their eyes. At that moment, another vehicle arrived, James Carter and his security team, carrying a tablet with the requested footage already queued. "Ms. Ellis," James said, "we've got everything. Cameras caught it all." Amara nodded, her expression unreadable. "Good. This isn't just about me. This is about every person who's been treated this way and didn't have the power to fight back." As the rain pounded harder, the tarmac became a stage for an impending reckoning. Claire and David stood frozen, their careers teetering on the edge of oblivion, while Amara prepared to unleash a storm that would reshape Horizon Elite forever. The tarmac at San Verde Private Airport was a tableau of tension, the relentless rain mirroring the storm brewing in Amara Ellis's eyes as she stood, drenched but unbowed, surrounded by her sister Nia, the security team led by James Carter, and the cowering figures of Claire Morgan and David Palmer. The revelation of Amara's identity as Horizon Elite's CEO had shattered the confidence of her detractors, their earlier arrogance replaced by a palpable dread as the full weight of their actions settled over them. The security footage, now secured on James's tablet, loomed like a guillotine, capturing every discriminatory word and gesture from the past 45 minutes. Amara's voice, when she spoke, was a controlled inferno, each word deliberate and cutting. "You've made your assumptions clear," she said, her gaze shifting between Claire and David. "Now, let's see how you justify them to the board." She dialed her final call, this time to Horizon Elite's chairman, Olivia Grant, who was in the middle of a strategy session in Los Angeles. The line connected, and Amara's tone shifted to one of absolute authority, the kind that commanded billion-dollar deals. "Olivia, this is Amara. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. We have a discrimination crisis at San Verde involving senior staff. I'm standing on the tarmac, in the rain, because our employees decided I don't belong on my own jet." The silence on the other end was deafening, broken only by Olivia's stunned reply. "Amara, are you serious? Your own staff?" Amara's response was ice cold, deadly serious. "I want the board convened within the hour, and I need legal and HR on standby for immediate action." As she spoke, Nia, her eyes blazing with fury, motioned for the attorneys to begin documenting the scene, their pens flying across notepads as they cataloged every detail. Claire, her earlier bravado crumbling, tried to interject. "Ms. Ellis, I didn't know it was you. I was just doing my job." Amara turned to her, her expression unforgiving. "Your job isn't to judge people by their appearance. Your job is to verify credentials, which you refused to do. You chose prejudice over professionalism." David, his face pale, attempted to deflect. "We followed protocol. The manifest wasn't clear, but Nia cut him off, her voice a whip. The manifest lists A. Ellis, owner, CEO. You didn't bother to check properly because you'd already made up your minds. The arrival of the legal team, led by senior counsel Elena Martinez, escalated the gravity of the moment. Elena, a formidable attorney with a reputation for dismantling corporate misconduct, began questioning the security officers, who confirmed that Amara's credentials were authentic. Officer Lena Carter, who had recognized Amara earlier, stepped forward with a tablet showing the passenger manifest, pointing to the entry that Claire and David had ignored. "It's right here," she said, her voice steady but laced with disbelief. "How did you miss this?" Claire's hands trembled as she clutched her own tablet, her eyes darting to David for support. But he was unraveling, his earlier swagger replaced by a desperate stammer. We thought she was trying to scam her way on board," he mumbled, the excuse sounding hollow even to himself. Amara's smile was chilling, a predator's calm before the strike. A scam. With a black Amex Centurion card and an executive badge, you didn't think. You assumed. At that moment, Marcus Thompson, the operations supervisor who had tried to intervene earlier, found his voice, "Ms. Ellis. I should have pushed harder to check the manifest. I'm sorry." Amara's gaze softened slightly as she looked at him. "Your hesitation is noted, Marcus. But so is your attempt to do the right thing. We'll discuss that later." Sophia Alvarez, the young technician who had first recognized Amara, stood nearby, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. She whispered to Javier Ruiz, "This is going to change everything." Javier nodded, his face grim as he realized the careers of Claire and David were over. Captain Daniel Foster, who had remained silent in the cockpit, finally emerged, his face ashen. "Ms. Ellis, I should have stepped in," he said, his voice barely audible over the rain. Amara's eyes locked onto his, her silence more damning than any rebuke. "Your inaction is as much a failure as their actions," she said, her words cutting deeper than the storm's chill. As the legal team began reviewing the security footage on James's tablet, a new twist emerged. Elena Martinez discovered that Claire had a history of similar incidents, documented in suppressed complaints from other passengers, mostly people of color, that David had buried to protect her. "This isn't an isolated incident," Elena said, her voice tight with anger. "There's a pattern here, and it's been covered up." Amara's jaw tightened, her rage no longer just personal but fueled by the realization that this culture of discrimination had thrived under her company's banner. She turned to Nia. "Get me the employment files for every staff member involved, and I want a full audit of all passenger complaints for the past 3 years." Nia nodded, already pulling out her phone to coordinate with HR. The rain began to ease, but the atmosphere grew heavier as Amara addressed the group. "This isn't about one mistake. This is about a systemic failure that I will not tolerate in my company. You've humiliated me. Yes, but more importantly, you've betrayed every person who's been treated this way and lacked the power to fight back." Her words landed like hammer blows, and Claire's knees buckled, her earlier defiance replaced by the dawning horror of her career's end. David, sweat mixing with rain on his brow, tried one last plea. "Ms. Ellis, if we'd known who you were." Amara cut him off, her voice a blade. "That's the problem. David, you think this is about who I am? It's about who you are." The tarmac fell silent, the only sound the soft patter of the fading rain. Ethan Caldwell, still present, shook his head and muttered, "You've just tanked your careers in front of the woman who owns this airline." His words were unnecessary. The truth was already sinking in. Amara turned to James. "Secure the footage and prepare it for the board. This is evidence now." She then looked at Nia. "We're not just firing people. We're tearing this culture apart and rebuilding it from the ground up." As the security team escorted Claire and David away, their faces pale with the weight of their actions, Amara boarded the Gulf Stream, her soaked coat a symbol of the indignity she'd endured. But her posture was that of a warrior, not a victim, inside the jet's luxurious cabin. She took her seat at the head of the conference table, Nia and Elena flanking her, ready to dismantle the toxic system that had allowed this to happen. The storm outside had calmed, but the one Amara was about to unleash would shake Horizon Elite to its core, a reckoning that would ripple far beyond this rainy afternoon. The interior of the $15 million Gulfstream G700 was a stark contrast to the rain-soaked tarmac of San Verde Private Airport. its plush leather seats and polished wood paneling exuding luxury. Yet the air inside was thick with tension as Amara Ellis took her place at the head of the jet's conference table. Her navy silk coat, still damp from the storm, clung to her frame, a silent testament to the indignity she had endured. But her posture radiated unyielding authority, flanked by her sister Nia Ellis, Horizon Elite's HR director, and senior counsel Elena Martinez. Amara faced Claire Morgan, David Palmer, and Captain Daniel Foster, who sat across from her like defendants awaiting judgment. The legal team, armed with notepads and the damning security footage, stood ready, while James Carter, head of security, guarded the door, ensuring no interruptions. The weight of the moment was palpable, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the jet's systems. Amara's voice, when she finally spoke, was a blade honed by both rage and resolve. "I want to understand," she said, her eyes piercing each employee in turn. "How you justified treating a passenger, any passenger, the way you treated me. Claire, you start." Claire. Her earlier bravado evaporated, stared at her hands, her voice barely a whisper. "Miss Ellis, I thought you weren't on the manifest. I was protecting the aircraft." Amara leaned forward, her gaze unrelenting. "Protecting it from what, a black woman with valid credentials? You didn't check the manifest properly because you'd already decided I didn't belong. Say it." Claire's lips trembled, but she couldn't form the words. Her silence an admission of guilt. Amara turned to David. "And you, David, you told me you know what clients look like. Explain that to my legal team." David, sweat beading on his forehead, stammered. "I made a mistake. Miss Ellis, I didn't know it was you." Amara's response was swift and devastating. "That's the problem. You think this is about my identity. It's about your prejudice. You humiliated me because of how I looked, not because of who I am." Elena Martinez, flipping through a tablet, interjected with a bombshell. "This wasn't a one-off. We've uncovered 6 complaints in the past 18 months, all from passengers of color, alleging similar treatment by Claire, with David signing off on dismissals of those reports." The revelation hit like a shockwave, and Nia's eyes narrowed. "You buried evidence of discrimination to protect your team?" she asked, her voice icy. David's shoulders slumped, his career unraveling before him. Amara turned to Daniel, the captain who had watched from the cockpit without intervening. "And you, Daniel, you saw everything and did nothing. Why, Daniel?" His face etched with regret, muttered, "I thought it was a personnel issue. I didn't want to overstep." Amara's voice was a quiet thunderclap. "Your silence enabled this. Inaction in the face of injustice is complicity." The room fell silent, the weight of her words crushing. Amara stood, addressing the group. "This isn't just about today. This is about a culture that allowed you to act this way, and it ends now." She nodded to Elena, who began drafting termination notices. "Claire Morgan, your employment with Horizon Elite is terminated, effective immediately. You're banned from working in any aviation-related role within our network." Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing, the reality of her blacklisting sinking in. "David Palmer," Amara continued, "you're also terminated, with the same ban. Your cover-up of past complaints makes you as culpable." David's head bowed, his 20-year career reduced to ash. "Captain Foster, you're suspended indefinitely pending a full investigation. Your failure to act will be reviewed by the board." Daniel nodded, his face pale, knowing his pension and reputation hung by a thread. But Amara's focus shifted to the broader picture. She turned to Nia. "We're launching a company-wide audit of every terminal, every employee, every complaint. I want mandatory bias training implemented within 30 days, designed by external experts, And we're setting up an anonymous reporting system, managed by a third party, to ensure no one else is silenced. Nia nodded, already typing directives into her phone. Marcus Thompson, the operations supervisor who had hesitated but tried to intervene, stood quietly in the corner. Amara addressed him directly. "Marcus, your attempt to speak up was too little, too late, but it showed integrity. You're being promoted to Regional Operations Director, effective immediately. Don't make me regret it." Marcus exhaled, relief and responsibility washing over him. Sophia Alvarez, the young technician who had recognized Amara and spoken out, was next. "Sophia," Amara said, her tone softening, "your courage saved this from being worse. You're promoted to Ground Operations Supervisor, and I'm personally funding your enrollment in Aviation Management School." Sophia's eyes widened, gratitude and determination mixing in her expression. Amara's gaze returned to the group. "This footage," she said, pointing to James's tablet, "will be mandatory viewing in our training. Every employee will see what happens when prejudice overrides reason." As the meeting concluded, Claire and David were escorted off the jet by security, their careers in ruins. But a final twist emerged as Elena uncovered a hidden email chain on David's company account, revealing he had coached Claire to screen out passengers who didn't fit the profile of Horizon Elite's clientele, a directive that violated every company policy. "This goes deeper than we thought," Elena said, her voice grim. "There's evidence of a coordinated effort to exclude certain passengers." Amara's jaw tightened, her resolve hardening. "Then we tear it all down," she said. "Every policy, every practice, every assumption. We rebuild from zero." As the terminated employees left, their silhouettes fading into the now clearing rain, Amara remained at the table, her mind racing. This wasn't just about punishing individuals, it was about transforming a system that had allowed such behavior to fester. She instructed Nia to prepare a public statement, not to cover up the incident, but to own it, to show the world that Horizon Elite would lead by example. The legal team began drafting a proposal for a $15 million diversity and inclusion fund, aimed at mentoring underrepresented groups in aviation. Amara's phone buzzed with a message from Olivia Grant. "Board is convened. We're behind you 100%. "What's the next step?" Amara typed back. "Accountability. Then change. We start today." As the jet prepared for takeoff, bound for Los Angeles and the 25th anniversary gala, Amara looked out the window at the tarmac where she'd been humiliated. The rain had stopped, but the storm she'd ignited was just beginning. This incident would not be buried. It would be a beacon, exposing the rot within her company and lighting the way for a revolution in how Horizon Elite operated. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every person who had ever been judged unworthy because of their appearance, and she would ensure their voices were heard. The Gulfstream's engines roared to life, carrying Amara toward her destination, but more importantly, toward a future where justice, not prejudice, defined her company's legacy. The 25th anniversary gala, just hours away, would not only celebrate Horizon Elite's past, but mark the beginning of its rebirth as a beacon of inclusivity and accountability. Within 48 hours of the incident, Amara's directives had set off a corporate earthquake. She mandated a $20 million investment in a comprehensive overhaul of company culture, starting with a real-time AI monitoring system to detect discriminatory patterns in customer interactions. A first in the aviation industry, an anonymous reporting hotline, managed by an independent firm, was established to ensure no complaint went unheard, and every employee, from baggage handlers to executives, was enrolled in mandatory bias training led by globally renowned diversity experts. Amara personally oversaw the curriculum, ensuring it included the security footage from San Verde as a stark lesson in the consequences of prejudice. The board, led by Olivia Grant, unanimously backed her vision. allocating an additional $5 million to a scholarship program for underrepresented groups in aviation. Named the Horizon Equity Fund, Marcus Thompson, now Regional Operations Director, was tasked with implementing new protocols at every terminal, conducting unannounced audits to root out bias. Sophia Alvarez, the young technician whose courage had shone through, began her management training, her scholarship fully funded by Amara, who saw in her a future leader. But the changes went beyond internal reforms. Amara, once a shadow figure avoiding publicity, stepped into the spotlight. Issuing a public statement that stunned the industry, Horizon Elite failed one of its own today. And that failure is mine to own as CEO. We will not hide from this. We will lead by example. Rebuilding trust through action. The statement, raw and unflinching, went viral, earning praise from civil rights organizations and business leaders alike within a week. Horizon Elite became the first major aviation company to partner with a third-party watchdog to publish quarterly diversity and inclusion reports, a move that sent competitors scrambling to follow suit. 9 months later, a surprising twist emerged. Claire Morgan, stripped of her career and blacklisted from aviation, reached out to Amara with a public letter published in major business journals. In it, she admitted her prejudice, detailing her journey of self-reflection through volunteer work at community centers focused on racial equity. "I was wrong," she wrote. And Ms. Ellis's response forced me to confront the harm I caused, not just to her, but to others I dismissed over the years. Amara, in a move that shocked the corporate world, responded not with condemnation, but with an offer Claire would join Horizon Elite's diversity training program as a guest speaker, sharing her story to illustrate the real-world impact of unconscious bias. The decision sparked debate. Some called it radical forgiveness. Others questioned its wisdom. But Amara stood firm, declaring in a boardroom meeting, "True change requires accountability and redemption. We don't just punish, we educate." The program, pairing former offenders with those they'd wronged, became a model for corporate America, lauded by Harvard Business Review as a masterclass in transformative leadership. Amara's visibility grew, not out of vanity, but necessity. She conducted surprise visits to Horizon Elite terminals, engaging directly with frontline staff, listening to their concerns, and reinforcing the company's new values. At the Los Angeles Gala, delayed by a day to address the crisis, Amara took the stage before 500 guests, including her father, Benjamin Ellis, who had founded the company. Her speech was a clarion call. Power is not in wealth or titles. It's in using both to lift others up. We failed, but we will rise stronger, fairer, and more human. Benjamin, his eyes glistening with pride, later told her, "Your mother always said justice is the truest legacy. You've proven her right." The gala became a turning point, with Horizon Elite announcing a 600% increase in funding for diversity initiatives, including mentorships for women and people of color in aviation. The San Verde incident became a case study at top business schools, titled Leadership Through Crisis, the Amara Ellis Doctrine, dissecting how one woman turned personal humiliation into systemic change. A year later, Horizon Elite's stock had risen 15%, driven by consumer trust in its reformed culture, and Amara was invited to testify before Congress on workplace equality, her voice shaping national policy. But the most profound impact was personal. At a quiet family dinner, Benjamin shared a story of his own early days facing discrimination as a Black entrepreneur, a reminder that Amara's fight was part of a larger legacy. "You didn't just change the company," he said. "You changed what it means to lead." Amara, reflecting on the year, realized her decision to stay silent initially, allowing Claire and David to reveal their biases, had been her greatest weapon. It exposed a rot she might never have seen. giving her the evidence to rebuild Horizon Elite into a company that didn't just serve the elite, but represented the best of humanity. The ripple effects were felt industry-wide, with rival airlines adopting similar reforms to avoid their own San Verde moment. Amara's name became synonymous with courage, her story a testament to the power of turning pain into purpose. As she stood on the tarmac of a Horizon Elite terminal a year later, no longer a stranger, but a visible force, she watched a new cohort of diverse trainees board a training flight, Sophia among them, now a supervisor mentoring others. The sky was clear, the storm long gone, but Amara's revolution had left an indelible mark. Horizon Elite was no longer just an airline, it was a movement, proving that true leadership doesn't just weather storms, it creates them to clear the way for justice. Amara's legacy, like her family's, would not be measured in dollars but in the lives she changed, the barriers she broke, and the culture she reshaped, ensuring no one would ever again be told they didn't belong on her watch.